So, you wish to know why this town is abandoned, young adventurer? Ages ago, the vast wasteland beyond the shore was once a treacherous ocean. Phanon, the warrior god of that tempest-tossed ocean, granted safe passage only to those who worshipped him dutifully or paid him tribute each voyage. It came to pass that Phanon's council informed him that Krellum, the underworld's god of the drowned, was amassing an army of undead, undoubtedly to be used to take over some country, or maybe even Phanon's ocean. As it had been arranged, the souls of those who died in Phanon's ocean would go to Krellum. Phanon declared that no more would the souls go to Krellum, but henceforth be bound to the ocean, forever in service to him. Krellum's bellows of rage shook the underworld when the influx of drowned souls slowed to a trickle. Little did the rest of the plane know, he was delighted that his master plan had been set in motion. As powerful as Phanon was, he was unfamiliar with controlling undead, so the hazards of the ocean were soon multiplied beyond his control, even for his precious sea creatures. Krellum came to Phanon, pointed out the troubles he was having maintaining control over his ocean, and offered to forgive that Phanon broke their contract and take the undead off his hands. Prideful Phanon refused to accept Krellum's forgiveness, accusing him of treachery and threatening war by amassing an army of undead. Of course, Krellum took offense to those accusations and called down a curse upon Phanon. His greed for souls would leave him forever wanting. The heartiest of meals would not quell his hunger. The stoutest of ale would not quench his thirst. The greatest tribute would not satisfy him. The most outrageous orgy would not please him. The largest army would not be enough soldiers to serve him. As Krellum retreated to his realm in the underworld, Phanon flew into a mad rage. His council and children tried to calm him, but nothing they said was good enough. Nothing was good enough for Phanon anymore. He slew the council and his children, raping and feasting on their bodies even as they rose again as mindless undead. He sucked in gallon upon gallon of water of his ocean in a vain attempt to stop the burning thirst. He swallowed up chestfuls of treasure, but it all just seemed to disappear into a black pit of nothing inside of him. Travelers wishing to cross the ocean looked on in horror as the ocean dried up before their eyes. Enormously bloated, yet feeling full of nothing, Phanon called down his own curse upon the land. If he could not become satisfied by everything in his ocean, nobody who journeyed to the ocean would find any sustenance. The land and even sky would steal the water from their blood, the breath from their lungs, and the flesh from their bones. Krellum appeared again to the bloated and wailing Phanon. "At least spare your palace from your curse, Lord Phanon. You must have a place for respite. Perhaps that would even counter my curse's effect on you."
"Yes! All my ocean save my palace shall be under this curse until I am once again restored to my glory."
With that, Krellum launched himself onto Phanon's enormous head and burrowed into his skull. The colossally inflated god could do nothing but wail and roll about as Krellum consumed his mind. Soon the vacuum inside Phanon burst, and all he consumed was flung back to where it had been before. Those at the edge of the ocean that had just seen it drain dry now witnessed the water rush back and cheered. Phanon's body deflated, and a triumphant Krellum crawled out of his head and stood over the defeated god. "Your foolish greed and pride has doomed you and your land for all eternity. I deem you no longer fit to rule here. You are forever banned from your palace, and I shall rule there in your stead. I shall leave your skeletal husk of a body to wander the waste you have turned your own precious ocean into." Krellum fled quickly to Phanon's palace, already feeling the ravages of the cursed land. The mindless undead body of Phanon writhed and swam slowly after Krellum, but was repulsed by the walls of the palace, too weak to break the geas placed on him. Those that had begun to try to salvage the ships at the shore became parched and exhausted after working only an hour. Anyone who did not return to the shore died and shriveled up where they floated, as if the ocean itself was sucking the life out of them. Slower than it originally occurred, the ocean evaporated, the cloudless sky itself seeming to sear its way into nothing. When treasures and sea creatures had been absent before, they were now splayed out across the forsaken salt flats that were once a marvelous ocean floor. Bodies desiccated in only a few hours, leaving behind bleached bones that soon rose up and stalked the salt flats as skeletal horrors, slaying any intruders and adding their skeletons to Krellum's undead army. No clouds would form over the vast expanse, and even those that attempted to fly across the ocean didn't get far, soon succumbing to the draining effects of the water. The towns that dotted the shores of Phaenon's oceans were swiftly abandoned, and trade was cut off between the two continents that were now separated by more than just water. The gods that ruled over the other lands and oceans that neighbored Phaenon's ocean were upset with the whole ordeal, as the borders of their lands were plagued with undead that spilled over from the forsaken salt flats, and their citizens were beleaguered with grossly redirected routes and increased price of goods and transportation. The gods themselves could not resist the ravages of the cursed land, and their armies suffered great losses even after turning back. These gods were unable to contact Krellum to try to reason with him, as he refused to leave the sanctuary of Phaenon's palace. Ever since his takeover, he has been surviving on the steady influx of the souls of those foolish enough to try to plunder the abandoned riches lying just out of reach. Krellum's son, Quarrel, is in charge of his father's old domain in the underworld. Attempts to attack Krellum from below are also thwarted, as Quarrel has full access to summon his father's undead army on demand. Rumors have it that Krellum has a secret underground passage to his own palace in the underworld, and occasionally uses it to visit his son. There are also rumors that the goddess Sarista from the sea neighboring Phaenons, mother of Phaenon's many now undead children, made a pact with the sun god in an attempt to bring about the end of the curse by giving a rare opportunity to bold adventurers. When a solar eclipse occurs, the curse on the land is lifted, and the undead of the salt flats fall into stasis, if only for a short while. Should a strong enough adventuring party time things just right, they could make haste for Phaenon's palace, somehow get Phaenon inside the palace walls and defeat Krellum. The curse could be lifted, and the ocean would slowly return to normal. Krellum has been informed of this trick to attempt his overthrow, so he has had his agents corrupt prophets, oracles, and astronomers with misinformation on how long the eclipse will last. Adventurers may start their journey thinking they have a whole day to make it to the palace, only to be halfway there when the eclipse ends and become the latest victims of the curse. Sarista does not give up hope, and sends her avatar to seek a worthy band of adventurers each year there is a solar eclipse. Listen not to the predictions of the soothsayer, the gypsy, or the scientist. Heed only the words of the beggar child, with the sun in her hair and the sea behind her eyes. You wonder how it is I know all this, young adventurer. Perhaps I was there when my father succumbed to the curse. Perhaps I escaped through that secret tunnel to the underworld after rising again. Perhaps I wander this ghost town, hoping to someday see a hearty band of adventurers race off across those forsaken salt flats toward a blackened sun, and return on the back of a whale gliding across rolling waves. Perhaps then I can rest.